When were you called? When did you get that call and that you knew that that was God's decision for your life?
Yeah, it was actually pretty early on. So I was always traveling with my dad. He spoke at camps and conferences all the time. So
Mhm.
I would go pretty much everywhere with him. Then I believe I was 10 or 11 years old. I had gone to a Christian camp that he had frequented before. And it's a camp that I'd go to a bunch of times as a high schooler. And it was a message where he started preaching and was kind of talking about serving God with your life, and
Mhm.
it was a call to full-time Christian service or surrendering, dedicating your life to the Lord, that whole theme to the message. And I just remember as a little kid sitting in the back, and I felt that God was tugging my heart, and I was a little bit nervous and apprehensive to make the decision because, obviously I know the devil was fighting that, and I was nervous because it's a teen service and what do I do? But it was just apparent that God was trying to get a hold of my life, and at that time, that's when I surrendered to the call to preach. That's not to say at times I kind of try to do my own thing or maybe question that, but I know anytime I went back in my mind's eye, I couldn't argue with that truth that I knew that God called me to the ministry.
That's interesting, bro. Especially at 10
Yeah.
years old, man. Like that's early.
Yeah.
That's
It
early.
is. Yeah. Yeah, and that's why it's important as Christians we never disesteem the decisions children make.
100%.
Sometimes it's people can look at it and say, "Well, that's cute. Oh, that's nice. Oh,
It's
that's so
just a kid.
sweet." Right? Yeah, but you think kids have that faith that we as adults so many times need, and that's not to say that we shouldn't be careful about the decisions they make and make sure we talk through those things with them, make sure they understand, especially when it comes to salvation. But never, we should never disesteem. We should always look to affirm whatever God is trying to do in
Yeah, 100%. I always say kids are smarter than adults, and
their
they're a
lives.
lot less jaded
Yeah.
than we are.
Right.
But it's awesome to see what God does in, excuse me, what God does in a kid's life and seeing that play out. How's that play out through high school for you and middle school?
Mm.
So you go through middle school knowing this is your calling, this is your thing, and you go through high school the same way. It's not a normal thing to go into ministry, especially in the
Mhm.
school realm. How does that how do you go through those two institutions knowing that's your end goal?
Yeah. Yeah, so it was a little different for me. I was blessed to grow up in a Christian school. So after that decision was made, um, I knew that's what I needed to start preparing for. So my dad and my youth pastor and a lot of people around me started to invest in me more. So I remember I was 12 years old was the first time we did a teen takeover
Okay.
at our church, basically where the teens ran the whole service.
Yep.
So I was one of the two slotted preachers for the night. So that was my first message in front of a church. Was 12 years old, and I preached on the man who marveled the master. It was about the centurion and his faith, and how Christ was taken back at it. And so throughout high school and middle school, had a lot of opportunities just to jump in. Started uh, running a bus route, heading that up, preaching at teen takeovers, preaching at nursing homes, and doing all those types of things. So middle school and high school, I was fortunate enough to be in an environment that nurtured that developed that. Uh, but just like anybody else, once I got to that end of high school, we started really questioning a lot of things as to, am I
100%.
sure this is what I want to do? Did I really make that decision? And the devil fights so hard because he knows when people are get to that stage in your most formative years, you're going to make those big foundational decisions about your life. He just tries to plant a lot of seeds of doubt. And
Mm.
for a little bit, I started trying to think maybe I'll do something else. Maybe I'll go into history. I like history. Maybe I'll
Yeah.
go into sports. I love sports. So I had about like a year and a half time frame where I kind of just try to feel it out for myself and see what I wanted to do. And but I could never escape that truth of knowing what I was supposed to do. So yeah, I mean, my middle school and high school were pretty formative for me and laying foundation for what I was going to do. And then I just had that little bit of time where I was a little bit confused about what I was going to do. But I think trying something else reaffirmed that that's not what you're supposed to do.
Yeah.
You're supposed to do this thing. And I found that ministry was the one thing I couldn't live without. It was the one thing I had to do, and I knew that was a passion God put in my heart.